And action. Okay, we're live. I start this the same way every time.
Continuity, that's a good thing.
Okay, so we got Keith back.
Yay. Yeah, I'm back. Boy, that was rough. Just to kind of give you an idea of why I missed, I woke up just before 8 a.m. on Monday, which, as Mike here knows, is a little early for me. Now, I don't sleep as late as I used to. I'm usually up between the 9:30 to 10 a.m. range, but anyway, I spent basically 8 hours in the vicinity of my bathroom and vomited several times.
Yeah.
No, there was no way I was doing a show.
But I mean, the original intent, as I stated in the beginning of the last show with Adam, was originally we were going to do a guest, and all three of us would be on, like we did with show number 2 with James.
And I still think that should happen with Adam.
That should happen. It definitely should happen.
Maybe more than once.
Maybe. I think I'm okay with. Well, obviously we don't have a long list of guests that we've had on the show.
No.
But
well,
I don't know why we wouldn't have more people on.
Well, we've also got another friend who's an anthropologist and is just inches away from having a master's degree in that He just needs to write his thesis, I believe.
Yeah.
But he really wants to be a guest and get in on some of this evolution action because, I mean, well, he's an expert, so I mean, he'd be a good person to have.
So I'm pretty confident that Adam is going to listen to this show probably tomorrow after I've got it up. Yes, Adam, we do want you back. Number 2, I didn't say number 1 in the first place, but number 2, I think I was a little rushed getting into the show. Normally Keith kind of takes care of putting the show together. I don't know why it works out that way, but you normally do that. And Adam and I put the show together in a half hour before we recorded it.
It was, hey, don't feel bad because it was a good show. I was entertained throughout.
Adam kind of took over. He had a lot I think he wanted to get out, so we just kind of went with it. I don't know if I want to say taking over is the best way to go about it, but Adam had some viewpoints that I think you may differ slightly on some things. I don't know. Let's see. Is that where we're going? Oh, no, we were going to start with something else, weren't we?
It doesn't matter. We can go to that since you brought it up.
Okay.
Like, no, it's not that I totally differ. It's the only reason I bring this up is because I believe you mentioned in the last show that we're 3 liberals who are totally pro-gun.
Oh, huh? Did I say that?
Yeah, you said something along the lines of that, and I just want to clarify that yes, I'm pro-gun, but to an extent. There has to be better regulation. There has to be.
Yeah.
And I wholeheartedly feel that way.
Something certainly needs to be done, especially considering what happened a couple of years ago.
Right.
Or a year ago with Sandy Hook, and now we've just had 2 recent shootings.
Right. It can't be this easy to purchase a gun. That is my opinion. I know a lot of people think I'm some sort of socialist bastard for, in that aspect of things, maybe I am. But it's obviously a thing that was designed for one purpose, and that is to kill. Now, yes, you can shoot at targets and things like that, but the sole purpose for the creation of a gun is to end the life of something else or injure something else. It is, yes, you can use it for self-defense, and which I think is a good thing, but we need to make it harder to get them into the hands of certain people, and then you're going to get the person that gives you the argument of, oh well, if we take all of these things away, we're going to have a black market of this, and well, maybe so. But
yeah,
I'm just saying we have examples in other countries, like Australia being a great example, who have really strengthened their gun laws, and it's worked. Research Australia.
Their conservative party led this movement.
And yes, and in America, it seems that obviously people just love their guns, and any information, we were before the show talking about confirmation bias. Like, you have the answer in mind that you want to be true, and you work to confirmation bias, basically. You work to confirm what you believe to be true, and that includes ignoring the evidence to the contrary. And that's what people in America seem to be doing on these gun issues. There are lots of good reasons for stronger regulation, and there are examples overseas that we need to pay attention to. But people are more content to listen to every horror story that comes along, or every slippery slope fallacy that someone presents in reference to stricter gun laws. And that's where I stand on the issue. But do I think that we should have guns completely taken away from us? No, I don't. Not at all. I think you should be able to own a gun as an American. It's in our Constitution.
Yeah.
And unless that's amended, that should be our right.
I don't disagree with that at all. I hope I didn't. I mean, I don't know if I made myself to sound ridiculously pro-gun, or I don't know what you would say, but I mean, yeah, I have no problem with people owning guns as long as the people owning guns are mentally stable.
Yes, that's my point.
Yes.
And
people using common sense.
we do need to. There was some. If you go back though, like when this Constitution was drafted, we didn't have all the. I know this argument's been used before. We basically had one kind of gun.
There were no tanks. There were no planes with machine guns attached to them.
So we have to somehow. It's just like with like we've argued for morality, how morality is a progressive thing. Like regardless of what the church wants to tell you, morality is something that progresses and changes with the times as we realize something we need to change this because there's a better way. Well, with the advance of weapons technology, we need to modify the rules that go along with owning a gun. And this is just my opinion. And we need to recognize that the world has changed since 1776. Yeah. And we need to adjust accordingly.
Some people aren't going to like that.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm not. I think the Constitution is a wonderful document, but it is not perfect. And we should modify it as the world changes. I'm not saying completely strike it down, but modify it as the world changes.
I'm not sure that Adam would disagree with you either.
Maybe not. I don't know. I just know Adam is pretty vocal in his support for guns, like all around. I mean, which is fine. He's entitled to that.
Right. I suppose I wouldn't mind, as we're 8 minutes into this, saying I think we should start off at the beginning of the show and make sure that people, if they haven't listened to us, if you want to contact us, send us an email at beinghumanist.podcast@gmail.com, or you can find us on Facebook and leave a comment on our page, facebook.com/beinghumanist.podcast. I guess I'd be curious to know what any of our listeners think about gun control, gun laws, what their opinions are, maybe how anything relates to morality and whatnot. It might be interesting to see what everybody says.
Definitely.
I guess with that we can move on to the next.
Sure. I don't want to go too much into that.
So last week we also ended the show on a commercial for the Super Bowl that was pro-atheist, or I thought. I may have goofed a little bit. I got excited when I saw a commercial. I think I actually thought that I was with a group of people not too long ago who played the commercial in a meeting, and it looked legitimate to me, and evidently it's looked legitimate to a few people, but we ended on the people thinking for themselves, and it was very inspirational. But the thing is, at the very end of it, it said, what did it say?
We go one God further.
Yeah. The text said we go one God further. I don't think the audio actually said it.
Yeah, the text.
You had to read that. Well, it was manipulated. The commercial itself was actually promoting Scientology.
Yeah, and you can find the original commercial on Scientology.org.
I feel like such an idiot.
Hey man, it happens to the best of us.
We had to make sure that we corrected that, because, I mean, the funny thing is it felt really good for atheism and free thinking and just people being themselves and being free to think for themselves. I mean, that's kind of what we want to promote, right?
Yes.
And I was like, Scientology? Well, I guess so.
Oh boy.
We're doing a little cleanup, I think. The beginning of this show, we're doing a little cleanup from last week. No offense to Adam. We're just trying to make sure we have all our pieces in order, because we did it kind of quick last week.
Yeah.
We also played another clip. You can actually search for it on YouTube. It's if you search for "atheist bitch slap," and I guess I can go ahead and play this again just to put the frame of reference back in.
Okay.
What I am here to talk about is that heaven is real. We believe heaven's real. And by the way, we spoke about abortion. I just want to say that theologically, I believe that every aborted child is in heaven.
Right.
So we would be doing them a favour by aborting them then?
No, I'm not saying that.
I mean, really, if you want to call that, have your own argument.
That's a very trivial response to a very serious
No,
issue.
that's an absolute factual response to what you're saying, if that's what you're saying.
No, not saying that. No, God is a God of the defenceless.
Let me ask
He's
you,
a God of the
what do you
weak.
think about this vision of heaven that Suleiman has? I mean, it sounds like it was kind of constructed a little bit, if I may say so, by men.
Well, yeah, it's interesting that every man is going to have two wives. That means there have to be twice as many women who believe this as there are men. Otherwise, there won't be enough to go round, or we'll all have to marry more than one, or something like this. It's not quite clear. But what is interesting here...
Not the Christian
I
perspective.
know, Pastor,
What is interesting here, actually, is that we've got people from different faiths and who all believe in some kind of heaven in a different sense. But every single one of them believes in this heaven on the basis of faith. And faith, by definition, is believing in things without evidence. And personally, I don't do that because I'm not an idiot.
Bad atheist.
So,
Bad. No. No. No.
I think anybody who has a certain viewpoint can have a tendency to laugh at things like that.
Yes.
I don't even know that Adam and I really talked much further on it other than playing the video clip because we thought it was kind of funny.
Sure.
But that is not the way, in my opinion, that is not the way to go about treating people respectfully and trying to get them to look logically at a situation.
No.
Although for some people, I guess it works. I know an individual who it worked for who person just kept getting at them with things. And
Okay.
of course, for him, he would go back and research it and come back to it. And that's kind of how he views changing people today. He will go at people with it.
I mean, whatever. I mean, I'm not saying it can't work, but in my experience, when you come at someone in that fashion where you're basically personally insulting them,
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing is you're going to cause that person to become immediately defensive.
Mm-hmm.
When you're telling them that they're an idiot, they're going to, that's just obviously going to offend them immediately, and they're going to reach further down into themselves to defend their position with more fervor. For most people, I think it causes them to regress. It causes them not to even want to consider your point of view because you're being a kind of a dickbag and insulting them personally. That's an ad hominem attack that's what we like to call an ad hominem attack, that she committed that cardinal sin of debate, an ad hominem attack. And
I think Boghossian.
yeah, and exactly. Peter Boghossian talked about this. He called it creating adversarial relationships, and that's what that woman was doing. She was creating an adversarial relationship with the man that she was having the conversation with. So rather than create openness, she's going to cause him to shut down because all he's going to focus on is that she just called me an idiot. She's basically saying my entire worldview and I'm an idiot, is what she's saying, and that's what he's going to focus on. He's not going to sit there and say, maybe I am an idiot, and I should. What she should have done probably is taken that method of attempting to get him to think critically by presenting another scenario, like when the guy says that heaven is real. He has just made a truth claim.
Right.
He has come out of the gates with a truth claim, and maybe you could kind of come back with say something like, "That's okay. Heaven is real. That's what you've stated in this situation. Which heaven is real? Like, because there are several different religions across the world
Right.
that believe in some sort of paradise in the afterlife. Which one are you saying is real?" Oh, well, obviously the Christian heaven is what he's talking about. Well, then you could come back with, oh, well, that's definitely an interesting thought, but wouldn't you say that people of other religions would also with just as much fervor believe that their heaven is real and know it to be true?
Right.
I mean, it's just something that gets the wheels turning rather than saying, oh, I don't take things on faith because I'm not an idiot. Mm-hmm. To me, that's just a terrible tactic.
I've gone after that in arguments before too, where I have pretty much ended arguments on, well, if you were born in India, you'd be a Hindu, and those people most likely believe in their Hinduism just as much, if not more, than you do in your Christianity.
Exactly.
I mean, it can almost be a complete turn.
Mm-hmm. You do. I mean, that question does it. What I see a lot is the fallback answer of they will reach for that. Well, it's about you just have to have faith, and that's that. And I'm gonna say that the person who reaches for that is not an idiot. They're not an idiot, but they are guilty of an intellectual cop-out. They've decided that they can't answer this question in a way that would empirically prove their position or give evidence for their position. So they dodge the question by throwing out something that is unfalsifiable. You can't really argue with it because,
like proving the teapot that's floating out in the middle of space is there, or the pink unicorn.
But I've never been in a. I don't know about you. When you bring up that argument about other religions, I think that you always do kind of see that brief spark of wheels turning.
Oh man, that moment right there is like it's like. I don't want to use the euphemism of catching a fish or something, and you've got a bite, and you're like trying to reel it in, because I don't know if I want to look at this in that manner. But I've seen that brief moment where it's like, they're thinking, how do I keep them in this? How do I keep them here? How do I keep them thinking about this?
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna lie, I've dropped the ball numerous times. I think. I don't know. Maybe it's set them on a path. Maybe it's planted the seed.
I remember there was a guy I was going over that with, and he had come back with, well, if you were born, I asked him, I think I used Yemen. I was like, if you were born in Yemen, don't you think that the odds are that you would have been a Muslim, being that Yemen is like 90-some, I think it's one of the highest percentage of Islamic population in the world.
Okay.
So playing odds, if you were born in Yemen, would you not have been a Muslim? And his answer to that was, I don't know. And I said, well, that's valid. That's actually a valid answer. Because there is a tiny possibility that you would have been born in that point whatever percentage that's not Muslim. I was like, okay, well, let me ask you this. Do you think then that if you were born in Yemen and you were born a Muslim, since you are so certain that Christianity is true, and that you are, as the person that you are supposed to be, would Christianity have found you? Do you believe something like that? Like maybe Christianity would have found you? And then he starts thinking about it. He's like, yeah, I mean, that's a good possibility. I'm like, oh God, I shouldn't have said that. And this was early on in my debating, but I feel like I just gave that guy another possible scenario. But that's kind of to me, that's an absurd thing to think, and I was almost kind of throwing it out there because I thought he would see that as absurd and be like, oh no, that probably wouldn't happen. But instead his eyes lit up. I'm like, oh shit, I just gave this guy another... Oh,
way to go, man.
Yeah. But yeah, going back to the bitch slap, it's just a bad tactic.
Amusing to watch. Not very. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I missed my moral advisor last weekend.
Your moral advisor. See,
I think Keith does. I think he do a really good job of. I think we do a good job of checking each other.
yeah, I could see that.
And no offense to Adam, I think we both went crazy last week.
Well, you know what? Adam is relatively new
Yeah.
to this. Even I think he's actually newer to the atheist circle than either of us.
Yes, very much so.
And he's got a lot on his mind, and he deserves to be able to get that out there.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good thing that you let him go off on the last show.
I think it gives you a chance. I think anytime. Then again, I'm not one who came from that kind of a background.
Yeah.
You two more so came
Yeah.
from that kind
Sounds
of a
like
background.
Adam and I
than
have similar stories.
So I'm, while I got excited once I started meeting people around my community that felt the same way I did about things, I got really excited about it, and I started doing even more research because I was so pumped about it.
Sure.
But I don't know that I necessarily had to blow off steam.
Yes.
At the same time, when over the summer, when you were really searching and finding things, we were passing things back and forth on Messenger, on Facebook, at a ridiculous rate. It just kept going back and forth. So you almost reignited my fervor to keep going again. I guess you did reignite it because now we're doing this.
Well, I'll tell you what, man. By the time we did our first show, I was a whistling teapot or a pressure cooker that's getting ready to blow. Like, I just had so much building up inside. I think you can even hear it in the first few shows. My anger level was higher than it is now. Yeah. And I think this show has actually kind of been therapeutic for me. It's helped me get some of these things out. And you've been here to play devil's advocate during my times of anger to say, let's pull it back a little bit. Let's pull it back. And
I think even Peter Boghossian's book has probably done a little bit for you too. Your reasoning in the last month has changed a little bit.
You know what his book did for me? And this is a risk for atheists. I think that before I read his book, I was in danger of maybe becoming a little dogmatic with atheism. Like, I think that I was looking at certain figures as anything they say, like Dawkins or something like that. Like, anything the guy says is gold. Like, and I realized I can't do that. I cannot take certain atheist figures and put them on a pedestal as if they have more of a valid voice than I do.
Right.
Like, we're all thinkers, and we don't want to deify guys like Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens. They are leaders and they are great examples for free thought, but we don't want to deify them. And I think a lot of atheists, whether they realize it or even want to admit it or not, they kind of are deifying these figures, in a sense. Like, I don't think they actually really think they're gods or whatever. But do you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, it's just you have really strong leaders, really strong minds, if you will. And yeah, I think you tend to gravitate toward those people because, in a sense, they're speaking what you feel, and if they're carrying the torch and they're making this positive change, you want to be a part of it. And yeah, I think I agree with what you're saying. I think sometimes that you can get to a point where, it's like groupthink, if you will.
Sure.
You get into a situation where this is all you hear, that's all you hear, and you forget about the other side.
Yes, and that's essentially what religion does, groupthink. Now, Boghossian, throughout his book, he talked about doxastic openness and closed.
Right.
Being doxastic closed.
Hard to say, isn't
you
it?
want to say.
Every time I read it, I'm like, I read it 4 or 5 times before it sounds right in my head.
But that openness has to go both ways. And I feel like I was in danger of becoming closed on the other end of the spectrum. Like, there's no way I was going to listen to anything.
That's an interesting perspective. I haven't really thought
now,
about it.
I'm still an atheist. I'm what we would call an agnostic atheist. Agnosticism is my position. Atheism is my opinion. I saw a meme that said that once, and I thought that was great. Like, agnosticism is my position because I don't know, if there's a God, and I acknowledge that I cannot know. Atheism is my opinion because based on the evidence that has been presented, which is none, for a God, I don't believe that there's a God.
You know, I'd say in the last decade, I had a conversational interaction with a cousin of mine, and he's a believer. At the time, I was agnostic, is how I would label myself, even though atheism was like there. I just didn't want to say it because I was afraid to piss people off.
Yeah, it was like Adam was saying, it's an abrasive word.
Yeah, exactly. And he actually called me a pussy because I couldn't choose one way or the other. As I was a fence sitter, he's like, he was okay with the idea of me being an atheist. He just wanted me to pick.
Huh.
But I was thinking to myself, that's just not cool. I mean, you're in a frame of mind. Whether I believe that there is or isn't, or I just don't know, I don't know that you can. I mean, what's the point in? Am I walking myself into something here?
No, not at all. Okay, I'm going to say that I see where you're coming from, and I'm also going to say that I can see where he was coming from, in the sense that you can say that you're an agnostic, and everyone is an agnostic. I don't care. Like, I think even Adam said that last week. Everyone is subconsciously an agnostic. They don't really know.
Right.
Now, let's say you've never actually surveyed the evidence. Sure, you can go ahead and just claim yourself to be a hard agnostic, and you may be out of apathy. But if you have actually surveyed the evidence from both ends of the spectrum, and you're still not taking a position, maybe you're a little guilty of being a little wishy-washy, but I'm not going to say that makes you a bad person or makes you stupid or anything like that. But I actually found that quote. It's Jerry DeWitt who said what I was thinking. It's a little different than what I said. It's skepticism is my nature, free thought is my methodology, agnosticism is my conclusion, atheism is my opinion, humanitarianism is my motivation.
That's pretty powerful.
Yes. I like that guy. Former pastor Jerry DeWitt. He's been accused of trying to make atheism more into like a religion kind of thing. But
really?
I think all he wants to do is just build a community. There's a difference between building a community and starting a religion.
But I think I've said it multiple times. There is that, people have said many times that atheism, trying to get atheists together to focus on one thing is like herding cats. There's this one thing that I'm super jealous about when it comes to church activity is the fact that there is community there, and that community doesn't really exist with atheists. It's not like there's a rec center to go to. Mm-hmm. It's not like you can go to a church and talk to somebody who's in charge, a preacher or whatnot, if you're an atheist.
Right.
And I think that is something that hopefully, eventually.
But basically what your goal is in a situation like that is to somehow form some sort of a community, some sort of feeling of togetherness as a group without destroying the idea of free inquiry. And because that's what religion does, in my opinion, is it destroys free inquiry because you're told you must follow this rigid
and other people will come along and try to tell you this, but they're wrong.
Yes, yeah. And that's what we as a secular atheist, humanist community, whatever you want to call it, is we do need to I think organize, because in some way, not necessarily organize, but find a way to come together, because if we don't find a way to come together, we have basically no power to change anything. Uh-huh. If we're just going to be scattered all over the place and allow we're basically have allowed the religious aspect of society to run this country for years and years and years. And we're seeing a shift right now. And I think this is the best time that we could possibly organize. And because we're seeing a shift of more progressive thinking, it's a good time for us to get in here and try to help move that along.
I don't disagree with that at all. I think there are more politicians who are feeling more free about coming out as atheists. There was actually a politician I just saw not too long ago that was sworn in. He is a Pastafarian. He was sworn in.
Ramen.
He was sworn in. There's a picture of the guy. He's probably 50, 55 years old. He's an older gentleman. I can't remember what his position was. I think it was in New York State somewhere, but I don't know. But he was sworn in with a strainer, I believe, on his head.
That's amazing. He boiled for your sins.
And I shared with you not too long ago the pin that you can wear on your lapel of your jacket or whatever that actually has a picture. It's a spaghetti monster outline, but it's not too obvious.
Oh, yeah.
It kind of has that feeling of like the fish or whatever that you might see on the back of a car.
Yeah.
But it's not obvious. Not a lot of people know what the spaghetti monster or the Pastafarianism is. But it's one of those things that if you see it and you know what it is, you just kind of nod at the person. It's like...
Exactly. Exactly.
It's like code word or something. It's awesome. Although I kind of hate that it's code word. It's just not well known, I guess.
Sure. I knew the bitch slap was going to lead to a pretty long conversation. And actually, I think it's, like I told you that I think it's a good thing that Adam brought that to the show last week, because I know you were a little apprehensive about it, but I think that's something that really needs to be discussed within our community is tactics. And if we want people to think, I'm not saying, I don't know, even, for me, my goal isn't to make someone an atheist, it's just to make someone want to think about things.
I agree.
And if they become an atheist, I think I'm obviously going to be happy about that. But the goal is to get people to think about existence in a critical way.
Not follow blindly.
Right.
I mean, to be honest, I don't know if we have any believers actually listening to the show, but if they are out there, I don't think it's a crime for a believer to question their belief and to search. I mean, what's wrong with trying to find information about your belief or things against, to be the devil's advocate of your own belief, if you will.
Yeah, and it's the ultimate exercise of God's gift of free will.
Well, yes. We're not laughing at you. I don't know.
Well, honestly, if you believe that your God gave you free will, you're exercising that by examining things.
Yes. Yes. There's a small part of me that I think when I was even in that agnostic stage, that all I could think of was, if there is really a God, and he knows where whatever that is watching me, if they can't tell that I'm a good person and they send me to this hell, then fuck them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what it was. Sometimes it gets really frustrating to think that I am less of a person because I don't believe in God.
Right, and in Christianity, like, belief trumps all. Belief trumps deeds. That is the core tenet, is that you must believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God who died for your sins. And I think that's a fatal flaw in the religion myself, but that's just me. And like I said, I promised I'm not going to attack a particular religion today.
Excuse me. I've got like some serious congestion in my throat.
But yeah, we also have here just a quick...
Excuse me.
A quick... one more quick recap of something that was mentioned in the last show, which would be the...
Just see if it's quick.
Yeah. I'm going to try to make sure it is, because we want to get to the next topic. But you guys had brought up Bill Nye and Ken Ham's debate at the Creation Museum.
Which is coming up.
Yes. And so I thought I'd take an opportunity to give my thoughts on this, which are pretty much in line with yours, Mike, I believe. And I think Adam was in about the same boat, which is, I'm not so sure that it's a good idea, and I think that I almost feel like Bill Nye has been duped. Like, He's been duped into something that's a ploy for Ken Ham to revive his failing business.
Yes.
And Ken Ham is not the type of person that's going to go into a debate with an open mind, with the thought going through his head, I'm going to listen to Bill Nye's points, and I'm going to take them in consideration.
It's not in his best interest. He has a business to run.
Right. He's not going to even consider the possibility of having his mind changed. And to me, that's where we see a lot of problem. It's not just this debate. In a lot of debates, you're seeing that. I think the point of it is you're trying to convince the other person of your position, but we're seeing too much closed-mindedness from one side or the other.
It's just a complete agree to disagree and yelling.
Yeah, and I guess that it's for the benefit of the people that are in attendance or viewing the debate to make up their minds after both sides have presented their case. But to me, it's just like, why are you going to debate if you have no intention of ever even considering? Like Ken Ham has said, I've seen the fossil records. He's read the things about, but basically he's saying that evidence within reality is trumped by anything that the Bible says. Like he's literally saying that I don't care what the evidence has shown me. I don't care what seems to be real in reality. I'm never going to believe it because the Bible tells me this. Like it's the same thing with William Lane Craig, another famous Christian apologist. Well,
Right.
Ken Ham's not really an apologist. He's more of a hack scientist type. But William Lane Craig has also expressly admitted that there's nothing that could change his mind because God has revealed himself, the Holy Spirit, through this power of self-authenticating blah bullshit, whatever he talks about, So why it's just, I don't understand it. Maybe I just don't get the concept of debate. I don't know.
Well, as Adam and I talked, and you and I have talked about this too, I'm while this may be a horrible thing for Bill Nye to have accepted and agreed to do, who knows, maybe what he says in that room with those people who are believers will get through to them.
Yeah.
Maybe.
There is that chance, and if he can do that, more power to him, and I'm happy. I just am afraid that he's fallen into the trap of a savvy businessman.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really all I have on that.
I would love to watch him destroy him. I would love to watch Nye destroy Ham.
Yeah.
And it may not happen. I don't know.
Right. I'll probably tune in.
If we can. I don't even know if we can watch it.
Well, I'm sure
it may be recorded and placed online later.
That's what I was going to say. I'm sure it'll be available for us to view at some point.
I just hope it's either not edited and shown in complete. That's what it needs to be. It
Yeah.
needs to be totally unedited.
Well, I'm definitely not going to pay to see it because I don't know where that money's going to go.
Well, it's too late now. It's sold out.
Sure.
It sold out so quick. I mean,
But if there's any chance that they were going to put the debate out there for people to purchase, I would charge all of our listeners and anybody else in the community not to pay to see this thing if that's something that happens to come up, because you don't know where that money's going, and if you
at least until we know where it's going.
Yeah.
Because that would be very beneficial.
you don't want to fund the Creation Museum, that is a detriment to our society intellectually.
I mean, literally, they have Triceratops with saddles on them, and they have people standing next to velociraptors.
It's a joke.
I mean, really?
And I think that, I honestly believe that most people, even Christians, think that place is a joke. Like, a couple of our buddies, I went on a little excursion this weekend to some breweries with some of my friends.
Okay.
And your friends.
I
but
actually kind of wished I'd gone because I was... Anyway.
It was a blast. Well, we got... believe it or not, I didn't start the conversation, but we got into the discussion about it was Brian.
We're trying to leave last names out. Did
Brian.
you like the sound effect that I threw in there?
Yeah. But he
Sorry again, Michelle.
he actually brought up the Bill Nye and Ken Ham debate, and we talked about it. And a couple of the guys in the car were actually kind of the moderate Christian type, liberal Christian type, and they were laughing just as much as we were at the idea of the Creation Museum and the idea of dinosaurs and humans being alongside each other. I still say they're guilty of the what psychologists call cognitive dissonance, but I'm glad that they're on our side.
Can you mention, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but can you mention first names without giving anything away? Was there anybody against it? Like, was anybody just not caring about the conversation?
No, pretty much all of the people in the conversation agreed that the Creation Museum is just bananas.
Okay, cool. I will say that I was over at one of our buddies' house to watch a game. What game was it? Or was it New Year's? Hell, I don't remember now.
Maybe the Colts and somebody.
Yeah, Holly and I may have just given away more than I wanted to.
That's okay.
Had gone over to the house, and Brian was there and started to ask me how the podcast was going. And the bad thing about that was that there were a couple individuals in the room who I don't want to talk about this at that moment, because that's not what we were there for. We were there to watch a game and enjoy just a good time with our friends.
We don't want to be on all the time.
Yeah, and I just kind of shut it off, and Holly knew why, and I talked to her about it later, because I just felt really awkward. It's like, I don't want to talk about this right now. Let's just watch. Right.
And this particular person wants to come on our show. He wants to do a show about holidays and their pagan origins.
Yeah.
It would have been better to do it around the Christmas time.
Yeah,
but maybe we can go around Easter, something like that.
Yeah. Do that. I will say that we have a really close friend who is
got a cramp in my leg.
That was the most awkward. Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm good. Well, I was sick, so I haven't worked out or ran. I'm a big fitness buff. I run 3 to 4 miles 3 times a week. I do some people call it a fad, CrossFit workouts, like workout of the day.
Yeah.
So I work out 6 out of 7 days of the week.
Right.
And I'm just getting back on the train after being sick because I took a week off to recover. And I think I'm feeling their...
I guess so. I wish you guys could have seen what I just saw. If you've ever had a muscle just freak out on you.
So, do we want to...
His entire leg just kicked.
We have actually the next... something that Mike here wanted to talk about. It's kind of ties in with the Bill Nye Ken Ham debate, sort of, because we've got intelligent design, which is pretty much a creationism in a lab coat. Right. But there was a movie came out in 2008 called Expelled, which was a movie that was, I believe, put together by Ben Stein. He at least narrated it and did all of the interviews. And then we had Religulious that came out the same year. And Mike kind of wanted to compare those two documentaries.
This is back around 2008.
Yeah, both of them came out in 2008. But Mike has just recently seen Expelled. And
it's been on my radar. And I've been thinking about it. I keep I'm going to watch this eventually, even though I kind of knew what it was about. It looked interesting when it was promoted back in 2008. I just never got around to it. And to put a story behind it, a friend of mine, a believer, we got into a discussion one day, and it always tends to happen at work, and I'm always like, dude, let's do this conversation over coffee so we're not wasting time, kind of thing. And something I said made him think, hey, you should check out the movie Expelled. And I was like, okay, I'll watch it, on the condition that you watch Religulous. We go meet and have a conversation.
Has this conversation happened yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
I don't know if he's watched it yet. But I watched it immediately, and I think he was a little surprised because I told him that I had already gotten 2/3 of the way through Expelled, like the day after, and he goes, "Oh."
Yeah. He's like, dang it, I thought he was actually going to put this off for a while.
No. When it comes to this stuff, I'm serious about it. I want to study this. I want to know what the other side thinks.
And that you should. Everyone should.
And so I think I am a movie person. I do a lot of camera video work, and I see things when I watch movies, video, documentaries. I critique big time because I see things that other people don't see.
Right.
I see the way people are lit. I see the way things are questioned or people talk to each other, the way a camera moves on somebody. And I think those little things say things without saying anything.
Right.
So I wanted to kind of compare and contrast, and I don't know when the last time was you watched Religulous.
I think it's been probably, I'd say 5-6 months. I went back and watched it just to kind of, because I hadn't watched it since before I discovered, I'm an atheist. So I figured I'd go back and watch it again. And
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have a relatively fresh view on Religulous. I think I watched it again within the last 2 months.
Okay.
So it's pretty fresh in my mind.
Right.
But I just watched Expelled, and you haven't watched it since like 2008.
I haven't watched Expelled since the year it came out.
Okay. So I wanted to kind of compare and contrast the two movies. I don't know if any of our listeners have watched either one of them, both of them, I don't know. I'm really curious to hear what everybody else thinks. If you can compare and contrast, if you feel like it, go ahead and email us. Again, beinghumanist.podcast@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you.
Sure.
So here are, I guess, my big concern is because I know that I land a certain way. I viewed Religulous as a very well done piece, and it was very positive, and I view that Bill Maher did a really fantastic job of doing a documentary and questioning people. It wasn't something that he was attacking. He was just like, hey, here's this information, do with it what you will. And I thought it was done well. But to the mind of a believer, I don't know if they would see it the same way.
Right.
So, Expelled, I can say, very well done. As far as video work and stuff goes, they did a really good job. It was very well put together. It was very well narrated. But I saw a lot of very negative things happening that pissed me off. Mm-hmm. The first 2/3 of the movie, I was laughing a lot. Like, seriously, just laughing, because I was like, I can't believe that they're doing this. This is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. The last half hour of the movie pissed me off, including the last 10 minutes. Just angered me to no end.
Mm-hmm. I can
I don't
understand
know.
that.
I don't know if that's good or bad and able to help you keep a clear mind or whatnot. But I had a lot going through my mind. Of course, I shouldn't say that I was like. It's not like I was like running through my house and throwing things off the wall or whatever. But there were things that I noticed. In Religulous, Bill Maher, every time he interviewed somebody, they were in a well-lit area. You could see everything. He stopped at a truck stop, and they had a chapel inside of an old semi-trailer. Mm-hmm. And he went in there, and he was just talking to the preacher that was inside and the truckers who were there, and they were just having conversation. I remember at one point, somebody got really upset and said, "You're not going to talk about my God that way," and he walked out.
I remember that.
But he was just asking questions, and nobody was offended other than that guy, and they just talked.
Right.
It was well done. There was a situation where he visited a theme park in Florida, I think, and he talked to the guy who was playing Jesus.
Yeah.
Very well done. They just had conversation. I think the guy who played Jesus was answering according to script that he had to answer to. I couldn't tell, was the guy really a believer? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It was like, was he just doing the job because he wanted to make money? I don't know.
Right.
But
I remember Bill also acknowledging, though, that guy had made a nice little analogy with the Holy Trinity kind of thing. The forms of, like saying the three forms of water, liquid, solid, gas. Like for the Trinity, the Holy Spirit, Jesus and God, whatever. Like, it's like he was trying to explain how the Trinity works. It's all the same thing, but it's in different forms.
Right.
And Bill thought, oh, that's a pretty profound little argument there, and he gave the guy credit.
I gotta be honest, I don't really remember that, but it makes a lot of sense. It is a good argument.
Yeah.
Or if you want to call it an argument.
Not an argument, more of like a poetic way of explaining the Holy Trinity.
Yeah, makes sense. Anyway, the thing is that everywhere that they went, the conversation was always a good conversation, and voices were not raised as far as I can tell. There was an incident where he was talking to an Islamist who had turned to Islam from Judaism, and he was hardcore about it, and he got really upset with Bill Maher for just questioning him. I didn't think it was unreasonable the way he was asking things, and he was just like, you're questioning my beliefs and I don't like it. But again, everything was well lit. I mean, it was in their area. It was what they, Bill Maher went to their places where they were comfortable and talked to them there.
Right.
And Expelled, there were things that I noticed where he's talking with Dawkins. Every time he talks to Dawkins, Dawkins is lit very darkly. You can't really see much in the room. It's just a bunch of shadows. One side of his face is lit. And it's always, intense. It's shaky, if you will. It's just, there's things happening. It's just like, it's not pleasant.
Yeah.
There's negative energy, if you will. I don't know.
Not to mention the air of condescension coming from Ben Stein.
And then I can take that further. He also talks with Dennett, one of the Four Horsemen.
Daniel Dennett.
And when he interviews Dennett, you can tell that it's done on a staircase or at least on a balcony where there are pillars. And it's done in a situation where the camera is looking up towards Dennett, if I can remember correctly, but there are columns, and you can tell that there are columns, and because of the way that it's framed, the columns almost form a wall. So all you see is the one area where Dennett is standing and talking. You can't tell who he's talking to, but you can see the right side of his face, and that's it. And the camera seems to be like 50 yards away, almost like it's in a secret place and he doesn't even know that they're being talked to, is what it feels like.
Right.
There's just a bunch of things like that. Other things I noticed were, in Expelled, they use a lot of propaganda, if you will. Every time they're talking about scientists trying to kick out creationism, kick out scientists who were wanting to research intelligent design and whatnot, they use a lot of imagery, such as Hitler, Stalin. They use images of their armies marching.
Scare tactics,
big time. It's like this stuff it's like they make it humorous. It's almost humorous to watch these things being compared to each other. And then he goes even further at the end of the movie. He goes into Darwin and trying to compare Hitler's fascism and Mein Kampf, how it uses Darwin's principles of survival of the fittest. And he tries to link them together, because I know that Hitler, I'm pretty sure that Hitler talked about it in Mein Kampf. But he puts them together, and it's just like, really tries to show how evil, if you will, Charles Darwin was.
Right. Which is pretty far from the truth.
This is a man who visited was it the Galapagos Islands? Is that what it was?
Galapagos Islands.
And saw differences between species
finch is the main thing, like the bird.
Their beaks
Yeah.
were slightly different, and they were on different islands, and they ate different food, but they were the same bird, just evolved.
And then, like the turtles, he also noticed the turtles, like their shells would be different and things like that from one island to the next. And it was just obvious that different environments, different environmental pressures were making changes on these species, to the point where certain iguanas from one island could not mate with iguanas from another island. Like, it's, God damn it, it's so obvious. But
Anyway, he really did, he pushed really hard to try to make connections in these places and make us evil.
right.
Make anyone who didn't believe in God seem evil. Although I think his main goal in Expelled was to try to get the public to see that those who want to study intelligent design are being treated unfairly.
Sure.
They're not given academic freedom, is his goal.
He
And
thinks
you
it
said
should-
something earlier before we started the show. You had an argument for that. Do you want to...
Oh, I see. Like, I do think that if there is a scientist that is advocating for something like intelligent design, that intelligent design in and of itself cannot function without a confirmation bias, because we're starting with the answer and we're working backwards. You're already positing that for complex systems, this is what intelligent design says, there are certain systems that they call irreducibly complex. They like to use the bacterial flagellum, which has been refuted by Christian scientist Ken Miller. Michael Behe's the one who presented that. But anyway, anything that's what they consider irreducibly complex, they have already posited a designer for being the cause of that irreducibly complex system. They're saying that those things could not have arisen from simplicity. They could not have arisen by random chance.
Right.
And also, those words, random chance, are wrong in the sense of natural selection anyway, because we won't get into that right now. But so if you are a proponent of intelligent design as a scientist, and there's a reason there's such a tiny percentage of scientists who even take it seriously, it's breaking a cardinal rule of the scientific method, which is confirmation bias. You've already started with the answer. When you make an observation, you go into that without the answer. You're looking to find the answer. So what you do from that observation is you come up with a hypothesis, a prediction. Okay? And then your goal is to prove that prediction wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You're not trying to prove yourself right. You're trying to prove your prediction wrong. And in intelligent design, they are not trying to prove their position wrong for the cause of a complex system. They are trying to prove themselves right. That's called confirmation bias. They're ignoring contradictory evidence to what they want to be true. And so, in my opinion, if you are a scientist that wants to argue for something like intelligent design, and your superior says, well, I'm going to demote you from this post or whatever, they have every right to do something like that, because you are going against the spirit of science itself.
You explained that so eloquently.
That's just the way I feel about it. And
I would really love to hear what listeners have to say about this. If you haven't watched the movies, either one of them, please watch them, and if you can, come up with your own comparing contrast work and share it with us.
sure, I would love to hear from listeners on this.
This is something. I mean, I didn't write anything down, which I'm gonna begin writing my notes, because I gotta watch both of them again before I go into this discussion with my buddy. There was just a lot of things. I know that I didn't talk about a lot of things, but I was a fan once of Ben Stein. Funny guy. I enjoy watching. I mean, hell, he was in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Was that?
Yeah. I used to love the guy too. He had Win Ben Stein's Money on Comedy Central.
Yeah, with the late night host now. What's his name? Jimmy Kimmel.
Oh, Jimmy Kimmel.
He was the co-host.
Yeah, you're right. He was.
Ben Stein was. I mean, he does the Clear Eyes commercials. That I used to see.
Dry eyes.
Funny guy.
Yeah, he's got.
But after I watched this, I was not happy with him.
I lost respect for him. I've told you that. I mean,
I'm really hoping that isn't because I have an opposing viewpoint, but
no, it's not even that. It's just how he handled that. It's because it's been brought to light that in certain interviews he cut them up. He didn't show the interview in its full length. He cut them up to kind of, and then you had the thing about the Darwin quote.
Yeah, so I did a little research. I haven't gone too far into it, but at scientificamerican.com, I found an article from the lovely tool of Google that it's 6 things in Expelled that Ben Stein doesn't want you to know ... about intelligent design and evolution. This guy kind of goes through and talks about these different things. Expelled quotes, number 1 was Expelled quotes Charles Darwin selectively to connect his ideas to eugenics and the Holocaust. I am not a scientist. I want to put that out there right now. I am not a scientist. Mm-hmm. I love science, and I'm going to read about it and know that we have some really awesome work happening.
Right.
But I am not a scientist. In any case, at the end of the movie, Ben Stein quotes Darwin, and the thing is that he takes certain parts out of the quote. He doesn't mention them, and in this article, it does a good job of italicizing the parts that he doesn't read. Now, Keith, you mentioned to me that there's different versions of Darwin's book
on the Origin of Species.
Like
yeah,
he's like after he wrote the first edition, he may have changed it a little bit.
Right, there are different versions, like of certain, like there are certain things that he said that were, I think, softened up a little bit for the general public.
So while I can't confirm what is and isn't right, at least this is a point to which myself and any of you listening can go off and do a little research on your own and figure out whether or not he's pulling a bunch of shit out that is just bullshit. So he talks about that. He also mentions number 2, Ben Stein's speech to a crowded auditorium in the film was a setup. This I thought was kind of hilarious because it shows him getting ready to go to speak in an auditorium to what looks like an educational facility, a bunch of students, okay? Place is full. It starts that way, and it ends that way, and everybody jumps up and they're clapping. The thing is it was staged.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't an actual speech. It was done this way for the movie. There were students in there, and I think it was done at Pepperdine, is what he says, Pepperdine University, where the scenes were filmed. Only a few of the audience members were students. Most were extras brought in by the producers.
Oh, wow. That is dishonest.
Number 3, scientists in the film thought they were being interviewed for a different movie. Richard Dawkins, P.Z. Myers, Eugenie Scott.
Yeah, it's Eugenie Scott.
Michael Shermer and other proponents of evolution appeared through this, remarked that the producers first arranged to interview them for a film that was to be called Crossroads, which was allegedly a documentary on the intersection of science and religion. They were subsequently surprised to learn that they were appearing in Expelled, which exposes the widespread persecution of scientists and educators who are pursuing legitimate opposing scientific views to the reigning orthodoxy. To quote from the film's press kit. So, when exactly did Crossroads become Expelled? The producers have said that the shift in the film's title and message occurred after the interviews with the scientists, as the accumulating evidence gradually persuaded them that IB believers were oppressed. Yet, as blogger Wesley Ellsbury discovered, when he searched domain registrations, the producers registered the URL expelledthemovie.com on March 1st, 2007. More than a month, and in some cases several months, before the scientists were interviewed. The producers never registered the URL crossroadsthemovie.com. Those facts raised doubt that Crossroads was still a working title for the movie when the scientists were interviewed. So it's, I don't know if I want to say it's hearsay, but there's some red flags popping up about the legitimacy of this.
Right.
So there's 3 more. I'm not going to go into them because we've already gone on for a while about it.
Yeah. We should try to plug in that, just because it's funny, Roger Ebert's little...
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Roger Ebert, if you don't know who Roger Ebert is,
the late Roger Ebert.
Famed movie critic who he's going to do his research because...
He's an atheist. Or he was an atheist.
Not even that. He's going to do his research because he needs people to take him seriously. He wrote reviews for the Chicago Tribune or Sun-Times.
Chicago Sun-Times.
So, I mean, he has to have legitimate backings for his work, correct?
Absolutely.
You would think so?
It's a reputable source.
Yes.
But anyway, I just thought that it's just a little excerpt from his review. This film is cheerfully ignorant, manipulative, slanted, cherry-picks quotations, draws unwarranted conclusions, makes outrageous juxtapositions, siegs between quotes that are not about the same thing, tells bald-faced lies, etc. And, yeah, what was that?
I have no idea. Sounded funny.
I lost you.
Okay, pardon me, I'll be back. Continue talking, Keith.
Anyway, I just thought that was entertaining little excerpt of a review of that movie. Just kind of tells us a little bit about how dishonest Ben Stein was in the making of this movie, and that's just too bad. And here we are at.
Am I back? I'm back.
You're back. Welcome back, Mike.
Sorry, my batteries died.
But yeah, so in another movie that you listeners may want to check out that kind of is the polar. It's maybe you can almost look at it as a retort, I guess, but I think this may have come out before Expelled. It's a PBS Nova documentary called Judgment Day: Intelligent Design on Trial. If you want to learn a little bit more about intelligent design and the reasons for why it has lost every time that it's been challenged in a court of law, this documentary will definitely give you a good idea.
And this was the Dover.
Yeah, that's the Dover trial. And speaking of that, also there's just a quick blip about this. This documentary actually mentions a discovery in 2004 of a fossil called the Tiktaalik rosé, which was a transitional species between fish and tetrapod, a land animal, so it could basically walk on land and swim. But there's only been one of them, and they had only found the front half of it. But either way, this was a pretty big time for this to be discovered, and it really actually kind of helped in the case because it showed an intermediate.
I remember that, yeah.
Now, just last week, they found like 5 more of these things, and these were complete. And they showed that the hind legs were starting to develop in these things. And it actually kind of made them rethink the development of hind legs. It looks like they'd started developing before they came on land, so who knows if they were scooting along the bottom of the lake or something like that, or wherever they were. And these things actually had mobile necks, like they could turn their necks. They were like some of the first
dude, that is so
things.
cool.
Yeah, and that's kind of where it's one of our ancestors. And it also said that these things, they were probably terrifying. They were big. They were basically a cross between a fish and a crocodile, and they had big sharp teeth. But anyway, this is one of our ancestors. But so far, I have not seen a creationist retort of moving the goalpost, because they're going to move the goalpost on this because we've got another intermediate species. They're going to move the goalpost.
Right.
But they're taking a little bit longer this time to. They're scrambling for some excuse right now, right?
Uh-huh.
I can't wait to hear what it is. But anyway, I don't know.
Please check out these movies, and we really want you. Of course, obviously, we want you to go do a little research if you can, and find these answers on your own.
Yeah.
But please watch Expelled and Religulous for us. And if anybody wants to write their own synopsis or compare and contrast the two movies and send us a little blurb about it, we'd love to read it. beinghumanist.podcast at gmail.com.
Yeah, and I'm going to go ahead and send Mike the link to the story about Tiktaalik Rosé. If anybody wants to check that out, we can throw it up on our links.
Okay, so
better move on.
Let's move on.
Because we're getting into the...
We're getting too excited about this science stuff, I think. But we're going to move right into more science stuff.
Sort of.
Right. Well, you know, I mean,
it's science related.
Everybody's favorite astrophysicist.
Your personal astrophysicist, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
We're going to start off with a little clip from an interview with Bill Moyer. So we're all on the same page at the same time. I think this clip is... Oh no, it's restarted on me, I think. That's kind of a bummer. This is a half-hour long conversation with Bill Moyer and Neil deGrasse Tyson. And I had it set up originally right at the end of the show. I'm going to take a guess here and hope that I'm close to it.
In the science class, you're not doing science. This is not science.
This is close enough.
Keep it out. That's when I stand up. Otherwise, go ahead. I'm not telling you how to think.
I think you must realize that some people are going to go to your show at the planetarium and they're going to say, aha, those scientists have discovered God. Because God, dark matter, is what holds this universe together.
So is that a question?
It's a statement. You know they're going to say that.
So the history of discovery, particularly cosmic discovery, but discovery in general, scientific discovery, is one where at any given moment there's a frontier. And there tends to be an urge for people, especially religious people, to assert that across that boundary into the unknown lies the handiwork of God. This shows up a lot. Newton even said it. He had his laws of gravity and motion, and he was explaining the moon and the planet. He was there. He doesn't mention God for any of that. And then he gets to the limits of what his equations can calculate. So can't quite figure this out. Maybe God steps in and makes it right every now and then. That's where he invoked God. And Ptolemy, he bet on the wrong horse, but he was a brilliant guy. He formulated the geocentric universe with Earth in the middle. This is where we got epicycles and all the machinations of the heavens. There was still a mystery to him. He looked up and uttered the following words: when I trace at my pleasure the windings to and fro of the heavenly bodies. These are the planets going through retrograde and back. The mysteries of the earth. When I trace at my pleasure the windings to and fro of the heavenly bodies, I no longer touch earth with my feet. I stand in the presence of Zeus himself and take my fill of ambrosia. What he did was he didn't invoke Zeus to account for the rock that he's standing on or the air he's breathing. It was this point of mystery, and in gets invoked God. This, over time, has been described by philosophers as the God of the gaps. Mm-hmm. If that's where you're going to put your God in this world, then God is an ever-receding pocket of scientific ignorance. If that's how you're going to invoke God, if God is the mystery of the universe, these mysteries, we're tackling these mysteries one by one. If you're going to stay religious at the end of the conversation, God has to be more to you than just where science has yet to tread. So to the person who says, maybe dark matter is God, if the only reason why you're saying it's because it's a mystery, then get ready to have that undone.
Good old Neil. Yeah, I agree with Neil completely on that entire tangent.
I had a feeling.
Yeah. I have Yeah, he makes a great point. It's just when we don't understand something, it does not give you license to speculate to what the answer is. You go out, you apply the scientific method. Once again, this is how we learn about our physical world. We don't end on a speculative answer. And that's what Neil's trying to say there. That is the spirit of science. And this is the reason he doesn't want you in science classrooms. And this is why we don't want people in science classrooms that are wanting to teach something that only gives you a speculative answer and doesn't seek to look beyond that answer.
Right.
And he's right that it is never decreasing gap.
Right.
I don't think we'll ever know everything, man, but it's just, you know what I'm saying.
I shared this video on Facebook yesterday. It was 30 minutes long, I think. What I love about this video and some others is there's other, where he does lectures in universities, and these are like hour and a half long segments, much like even this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
You have to stick there throughout the whole thing, which sometimes is a little scary because people aren't going to get the full picture unless they're inclined to want to listen for one reason or another.
Mm-hmm.
But in this interview, he goes on and they talk about dark matter and what it is, and the fact that nobody really knows what it is.
Nope.
But he gave a really good example of what it could be, because it's the reason why they're saying that there's dark matter is because things are grouping in the universe. They're like grouping together, so there's spaces where maybe there's nothing, but then there's other spaces where things are like almost like a web, if you will.
Right.
A spider web, where things are just kind of coming together.
Right, and something unseen, unknown is moving these things, and that's what they're calling dark matter.
Right. So what Bill Moyer was trying to say was, maybe that's God. Maybe God is moving everything together and grouping it.
Yeah, and maybe it is. Maybe it is. Maybe he's right. We don't know that, but we can't stop there. We can't end on that speculation. And I don't think people understand that's an unnecessary step to speculate, to try to plug in an answer as something that we can't possibly find.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you plug in an answer for something that we can't find? That is the equivalent of giving up.
Which is exactly kind of what he was just saying there about Ptolemy and was it Newton? Was it?
Yeah, he's talking about Newton and Ptolemy.
Where they stopped for one reason or another. They didn't have an explanation. They couldn't figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? But they just induced God as the reason for it. Tyson has another speech where he goes on, it's an hour or whatever, and talks about naming rights and things like that, which is a fantastic little bit to talk about how I think I'm getting a little off subject here. I could go on. But you don't want to do that. I mean,
No.
I think we discover, because obviously post those two situations, we've discovered, why things work the way they do after they decided God did it. Later on, we discovered, standing on their shoulders, we figured out further what it was, okay? Much like what? In the Bible, it talks about two sources of light, the sun and the moon.
Right.
The moon is not a source of light, it's reflecting
Right.
the sun.
And Bill Nye gets booed off of the stage for bringing that up.
He doesn't get booed off the stage.
But he gets booed. And some people leave.
A woman leaves and says, you can't, it was something in Texas, I don't remember.
Well,
But yeah, it's that's the Bible's laced with those. I was just watching something else about the end of the world. The stars are going to fall.
yeah.
Right.
Fall to the earth.
Yeah.
That's impossible. That is.
Good luck in that, because
It wouldn't get but millions of miles, or some thousands of miles away. Who knows how far?
the Earth would destroy itself.
It would be disintegrated.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not possible. It's like the people who wrote this book assumed that the stars are actually kind of small things, like smaller things than
Right.
the Earth.
So, I mean, I guess that's the point that I wanted to make.
Now, I know this is not technically next on the list, but it's a great lead-in because And I don't want to say much about it because I don't want to give it much credence. The Principle, the movie, you know, the thing that you pointed out to me.
Yeah, when I first saw it, I thought, hey, this looks cool. They've got Krauss and a whole bunch of other people, but I hadn't really gone into it too far, and I shared it with you.
Right. It talked, Neil deGrasse Tyson was just talking about Ptolemy. And he was talking about how he, I think he said something like he bet on the wrong horse or something like that. And when he says he bet on the wrong horse, he was referring to the geocentric model, which is what was the predecessor to the Copernican model, which is that the Earth revolves around the sun, that the sun is the center of our solar system. Now, we have these jokers who just are putting out this documentary, and it's the guy behind it wrote a book called Galileo Was Wrong, the Church Was Right. His name is Robert Saginis, something like that. And there's another screenwriter in this, I believe his name is Rick Delano. But they present this movie as if it is a serious documentary with serious scientists who are there to, like there is some controversy over the Copernican model of the Earth revolving around the sun being the center of our solar system. This movie is actually trying to say that there is a controversy within the community of physics, astrophysicists, things like that, that the Copernican principle is under scrutiny. It's being questioned. That the Earth is somehow possible, if we throw out that Copernican principle, if somehow that's proven to be false, that geocentrism is back up for debate. The possibility that the Earth could be the center of the universe and everything else is moving around it. Well, it's mathematically not possible, for one thing. And I want to know, first of all, Lawrence Krauss is in this movie, and he's not happy about this.
Right.
He actually has taken to Twitter to say, when someone had brought up this movie, it is nonsense, and that they use me to argue for something that I know is wrong demonstrates that the word nonsense is charitable, which makes me think he might have wanted to say something more like bullshit. Okay. Yeah, and the guy that's one of the guys involved in this, Rick Delano, and I have actually personally been sparring with Rick Delano a little bit. Yeah, and just for posting an article that it was a debunking geocentrism kind of thing on the Principle's Facebook page, he has barred me from making comments on the Principle.
No kidding.
Yeah, and
way to go, Keith.
Yeah, but we're going back and forth on YouTube now. But the last question that I posed to Mr. Delano was, how do you account for the predictable meteor showers that come about? That the reason that we can predict them is that Halley's Comet, which has an elliptical orbit around the sun and leaves a debris trail, 2 times a year in May and October we pass through this debris. The Earth passes through this debris trail, so we can always predict that we're going to see these meteor showers at the same time. Now, in a geocentric model, when everything is revolving around the Earth, but somehow this comet is circling the sun when in its orbit, please tell me how it's possible that we're getting the meteor showers from this comet's debris trail if we're stationary.
Right.
That's just one thing. We also have these things called geostationary satellites, where they're staying in one place over the Earth. We've figured out how to get these things to stay, and that is based on the Copernican principle. Like, this is settled science. I mean, this Rick Delano, he is just convinced that he's got something here. He's got like some big controversy that's getting ready to be stirred up. People are going to see this movie and geocentrism is going to be back on the... No, it's not going to happen, because he's going to be laughed off of the big stage is what's going to happen.
I'm severely depressed right now.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to check this farce out, you can go to Facebook and look up the Principle movie. You can look it up on Google. I wouldn't pay it too much attention. I don't think it's going to make much of a splash personally, but I am very, very annoyed that he's using brilliant minds like Lawrence Krauss and Michio Kaku and people who obviously do not buy into anything other than the fact that the Earth is revolving around the sun.
Right.
We are orbiting the sun. So,
can you tell me something? I know we're close here. why is it that in public forums such as YouTube, Facebook, when there are opposing viewpoints, okay, where it seems that, okay, the group that's leading the discussion is some sort of Christian or God-fearing group, that those who question are either removed or they've disabled comments or some sort of extent to that manner where things are disabled and you can't see comments, you can tell that there's a bunch of dislikes, or all of a sudden you can't even like or dislike on YouTube. But then it seems like the other way around, when it's something hosted scientifically or whatnot, there's all kinds of conversation happening. I don't have any scientific backing for this, but this is what is what I visually see. What is it? It's like somebody's afraid of something.
Yeah, well, to me, it's like their one worldview is it's predicated upon free inquiry. If you're a humanist and atheist and agnostic, just generally a non-religious person, scientific-minded person, the entire worldview there is predicated upon free inquiry.
Yeah.
But religion is predicated upon dogmatism, a strict, rigid way of thinking. And when someone comes in there and starts questioning that, and you're someone who is out there to promote that, you don't want there to be a debate over this. You want people to accept what you're saying, and that's just it. I think that's really what it is.
It's amusing to me every time I run across that, because, for instance, the Ken Ham Nye thing, on the Big Think, the comments were open, tons of likes, blah, 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 on the YouTube channel. Then you go to the Creation Museum, their video, everything has been disabled.
I know, I saw that. And I heard you and Adam talk about that last week. That was just...
It's just like, what's wrong? Are you afraid of something?
Ken Ham would have obviously been blasted on that video because there is a large amount of kind of smarmy, condescending atheists out there, but...
True, but at the same time, there's a lot of asshole believers who want to make sure that you know you're going to go to hell if you don't believe this.
They're on both sides.
Yeah.
If you, I hate to do this, but I kind of have to take a... It's not gonna wait, man. And I know you wanted to talk about the newsroom a little bit.
I will cut your volume.
Okay.
And say bye-bye for a minute. I wonder if anybody can guess what Keith is doing.
Tinkle.
I don't know. Maybe we'll go ahead. Let's see. What do I want to do? Maybe I'll go ahead and play the raw story thing, and we'll just get it going for us.
City Council was scheduled to vote on repealing the Fairness Ordinance, but they never got the chance. That's because Councilman Ron Webb changed his mind about his proposed ordinance. In December, the council voted to end discrimination based on sexual identity of preference. 10 days later, Webb introduced an ordinance to negate the council's vote. Now, Webb heard pleas from people in favor of fairness, but it wasn't until a transsexual woman quoted the Bible that he dropped his proposal.
Leviticus 20:13 states, "If a man also lie with mankind as he lieth with a woman, they shall surely put him to death." I brought the first stone, Mr. Webb, in case that your Bible talk isn't just a smokescreen for personal prejudices.
Webb's decision to pull the proposal means that the Fairness Ordinance continues to be in effect. Now that means that in Shreveport, people can't be fired or denied housing simply because they are gay or transgender.
Okay, so there was an interesting situation. This was, I think it's, she said Shreveport, Louisiana. We had a transgender woman who used Leviticus to basically stop a councilman in his tracks and try to stop from passing. Let's see, City Council passed the you know what? I've got Keith back now.
Yeah. Starbucks.
So what happened was the guy was trying to make it so that they could fire people based on their sexual orientation, whatnot. And this woman brought the first stone so that he could throw it at her.
Brilliant.
And he dropped it. Or at least at this point, he's dropped.
Right. Brilliant. I just think that we threw this out here because it actually is kind of a feel-good story. I mean, like, she threw something that he was clinging to and he was quoting and blah, blah, blah. Is just like, all right, put your money where your mouth is then. Like, if you're going to sit here and demonize me because of your Bible, here, put your money where your mouth is. I brought the stone. Stone me to death.
Yeah. It was really pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
Did you see the size of the stone?
Yeah.
It was a good 5-pound stone. I mean, it fit in her hand, but it was big and well weathered. It was rounded.
Right.
And it would have caused some damage.
Right. And I would love to see more of this. I would love to see more people just getting up there and getting the courage to say, you know what, put your money where your mouth is. Just exactly what we're saying here is like, if you're going to use the Bible against me, stop being wishy-washy about it. Stop, all or nothing.
And I think this kind of goes right back into the idea of morality.
Right.
And the idea that you don't need the Bible to be a moral person.
No.
You don't need God to be moral, because obviously you used to have to stone people to death. Today we have gotten to this point of, that's kind of not cool.
Right. And like I've said, I think progressive morality is something that exists, and progressive morality is a function of secularism. It is not a function of religion. As we move forward, we realize, oh God, we've kind of been not doing so well in this area. We need to make things. It starts back, like you can look back at slavery. Then you go up further and we get into the civil rights with, like, we're just using America as an example. We've got the civil rights movement, and now we have the homosexual community, the LGBT community. Like we are realizing that things that we've done in the past are not right.
Right.
And regardless of what a religious text says, we can't do these things as a functioning society that is trying to move forward and make life better for everyone. And I just think it's great what she did. And I hope we see more of it.
And the people in the room seem to have a liking to it as well. Because
Absolutely.
I did hear some cheering and clapping at the end of that clip. So with that, let's see. We're at an hour and a half.
We were windy today.
A little bit. There's one final thing that we want to go after. Or I want to go after. Keith hasn't finished the first series. I don't have HBO, but I just got my hands on The Newsroom, which is Jeff Daniels playing one of the more popular nightly news anchors,
pundit, whatever.
It's fictitious. It's totally fictitious, other than the fact that, from what I understand, they do a really good job about finding the facts about the politics that are happening around us today.
Mm-hmm.
And they're actually talking about what's happening is this cable news station is going through the last 3 or 4 years of American politics today, the
Right.
last 4 years. So they're showing them go through these different periods of time from 2008 and whatnot, where Obama was elected and on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The main character is a Republican, and he's not a happy Republican because he feels like his party's been hijacked.
Right. Kind of has.
Obviously, I don't necessarily want to go too far because you still have 3 episodes to finish the first season.
Right, and then there's maybe other people who haven't seen it. And
Right. But I guess what I want to say is I highly suggest people checking this show out if they get an opportunity. It's kind of a leap into free thought, if you will, because you're seeing something, you get to examine it yourself, you get to decide whether or not, I mean, it is fictitious, but they're putting out viewpoints that are very interesting, very intriguing.
For sure.
In fact, in one particular episode, I don't think you've gotten to it yet, I'm not sure, but they're preparing for a mock debate. Okay? They want to change the way debates are done in this country. And they've actually, this is the last, this is prepping for 2012, I believe, and they've got all the Republican candidates up, and they've taken the newsroom itself, the different people in there, they've done a lot of research, and they've given a politician to each person to represent, so they know what their answers are going to be. So when a question is asked, the person will answer based on research that they've done on answers that these politicians have already given. Okay, so they're impersonating the politicians. Anyway, in this process, there was one particular point that really stuck to me. It was when they were talking about Michelle Bachmann saying God told her that she needed to run for president. Do you remember this at all?
I do remember Michelle Bachmann saying things like that. And she says lots of things like that.
And a lot of people don't necessarily know who Michelle Bachmann is, but if you watch The Daily Show or The Colbert Report, you're going to know who Michelle Bachmann is, because she's one of those people that they like to pick on because she says things that are a little ridiculous, okay? And in this particular case, one of the reporters, one of the assistants who's helping put this together, who is actually, I think she's going to be Bachmann, I can't remember. She says, I want to know why nobody has asked what God's voice sounds like. Why no one has asked Michelle Bachmann, what does God's voice sound like?
That's awesome. I haven't gotten to that yet, you're right.
And it was so awesome. It's kind of one of those deals. It's like, man, why didn't I think? I mean, seriously, why aren't people questioning politicians this way?
Right.
I mean, what would they say? I want to know what Michelle Bachmann would say if she'd been asked that question.
Right. Well, and remember George Bush also said that God told him that we should go to Iraq.
This is true. I do remember this. So, here again, this is another, hey, please email us again and tell us your thoughts on the newsroom if you've watched it. It's a fun show. It's a good show. And I think the thing is I kept seeing people posting clips for it online. And I'm like, man, I got to get my hands on this show. It's good.
It is a good show. I need to finish it. I have season 2 actually waiting in the DVR queue.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Man. I'm going to have to come over.
Yeah. Hey, might as well.
Okay, so I guess we're at the end. I don't need to really riff anymore on Newsroom. That's been our show. You can catch us again. I've done a pretty good job of making sure that our email address is in place throughout the show.
Yeah.
Because I want to make sure people know what it is. You can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/beinghumanist.podcast. And of course, we're on YouTube as well. We've had some people comment us there, but just remember that YouTube is slightly different. It's youtube.com/beinghumanistpodcast. Right. There is no dot between humanist and podcast.
And I don't believe we have show 8 yet.
Oh, no, we
YouTube.
don't. I've been busy. I just
I
realized I
understand.
haven't loaded that. Hopefully by the time you hear this, it will be loaded. I think we're going to end the show with a 30-second clip from Stephen Fry.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything you want to say beforehand, or even it doesn't have to be about Stephen Fry? We can just.
No, I think we've covered it. I was itching to get to this show because I missed last week, and I'm glad we were able to do a little MLK Day action. Like, we should also say that, yes, everybody please honor Martin Luther King Jr. He was a very important figure in civil rights, if not the most important in American history. Maybe other than the abolitionists, but still, yeah, we need another guy like him for other causes.
Right. While he was Christian, he was doing something for social change and the idea that, people should be treated equally. and I believe everyone should be treated equally.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you are a religious believer.
Yeah.
I laugh at that, which is probably kind of wrong, but I mean, it's free thought. We just want people to think. Be happy with yourself. I mean, there's no reason to live life
Right.
unhappy. I
And
think that's what humanism is all about.
Right,
I mean,
and you must realize too that you have a lot of power within yourself to do things for yourselves and to change things about your situations. You are not helpless as a human being, and I think that's another key to humanism. You are in control of your own destiny.
I have a really big smile on my face. Yeah, I actually almost forgot that today was MLK Day. I don't know why, but I did. Good man.
Yes, sir.
Did a lot of good stuff for us socially.
Absolutely.
On that note, I'm Mike.
And I'm Keith.
You're listening to Being Humanist, and have a little Stephen Fry outro.
Yeah, enjoy. It's a good one. We like the guy. Hey, keep thinking.
Oh no, my YouTube's doing that weird thing again, where it doesn't like me. See that? The whole
What the heck?
Yeah, I know.
So yeah, keep thinking.
But on the other hand, we must remember, as the point that was made, is that the church is very loose on moral evils, because although they try to accuse people like me who believe in empiricism and the Enlightenment of somehow what they call moral relativism, as if it's some appalling sin, where what it actually means is thought, they, for example, thought that slavery was perfectly fine. Absolutely okay, and then they didn't. And what is the point of the Catholic Church if it says, oh, well, we couldn't know better because nobody else did? Then what are you for?